Menopause is wrecking my body and no one will listen. Well, let me pause and tell you that I'm listening. Maybe you're in a place where you don't feel like yourself, you have no energy, you're gaining weight that you can't lose, and you're having anxiety that you've never experienced before. You talk to your doctor, friends that aren't experiencing this, and sadly, maybe even your family members. It's like nobody is hearing you. I want to thank Hone Health for making this series possible. I'm a husband to a wife who married a very handsome and caring bald man. I'm a father of 2 daughters, and we have 3 cats. Professionally, I earned my PhD in exercise, nutrition, and preventive health from Baylor University. I'm a professor and director of the Performance and Physique Enhancement Laboratory. And as a fat loss scientist, my research helps people optimize their body composition within a maintainable lifestyle. In particular, my research focuses on how to maximize fat loss, but maintain muscle mass during the dieting process. So why am I so passionate about menopause fitness? Well, like a lot of you feel powerless to help yourself during your own menopause journey. In the same manner, I not only felt powerless, I was powerless to help my wife navigate a lot of the problems that she experienced during her menopause transition. And when I started talking about this publicly, I received an enormous amount of notes, comments, communication from women telling me their stories. What was crazy to me was they were eerily similar to my wife's story. Their bodies were changing. They didn't feel like themselves. They're gaining weight. They have no energy. Again, anxiety's off the charts. And for context, my conversations with these women were from women who embraced a fitness lifestyle, just like my wife. They're tracking their food intake. They're never missing workouts. They're lifting weights. They're truly dedicated to their fitness lifestyles. So ultimately, it's my wife's story that brought me here. I'm not a physician, but I am a well-respected and published fat loss researcher. So the least I can do is take my skill set, my experiences and resources, and use them to help women who are experiencing weight loss resistance and who want to lose body fat and build muscle during this phase of life. I don't want other women, including my daughters, to experience what my wife experienced. But rather than me tell you about my wife's experience, let's have her tell it. All right, this is a very special moment because my wife's first time ever on camera, and she hates this. She doesn't even let me take her picture in our family photos.
It's true.
So thank you for doing this and ultimately helping. We always talk about our daughters. So thank you. Tell us I think it would be good if you would share kind of like your fitness story.
Okay. Well, my dad was always athletic and really into sports, and he also lifted. So around 9th grade, he took me to the gym with him, and I just fell in love with working out. He introduced me to squats, bench, heavy lifting. I just loved getting stronger. I wanted to get bigger, not necessarily a thing for most women, but I just loved lifting to get stronger, and that was always my goal. So I lifted consistently through high school and into my 20s until I met you. That was one of the things that we had in common, is that we both love the gym and we're interested in working out. So that was something that we could do together. Now, when you came into my life, what you added to it was your knowledge of diet and protein and how important that is.
Oh, wait. I got this is an awesome story. I think it was maybe our second date. I was at your house, and I can be a little weird sometimes. So I was going through her kitchen and opening up her refrigerator. What I saw, I'll never forget. I open up this beautiful woman's refrigerator, and she's fit. She lifts weights. And what I see is lemonade, pasta sauce, And then on top of the refrigerator, some type of mudslide.
Bailey's Irish cream.
Bailey's Irish cream, so those were the only three things in her house. And I was like, where's your protein? And she kind of gave me a look, which I still get to this day. She's like, what you see is what you get. So that was, that is like, I'll never forget a refrigerator being like, it was almost like you had no money, or I'm like, but you clearly worked and all that. So there's my protein story.
Okay, so well, that introduced you to the fact that I wasn't going to be the cook of the family or the foodie, which worked out well since we're both pretty basic, and you made all the chicken and I was happy to eat that, and that did help with lifting in the future and just making more gains and progress in that space. So that was just part of our lifestyle. I lifted through both pregnancies with our daughters, and basically that was just a big part of our life until mid-late 40s, where things started changing. I mean, the normal hot flashes, night sweats, like reduced sleep, I was expecting, everybody knows those to be the menopause, related symptoms, perimenopause. So I wasn't surprised with that. But then just body composition wise, I just started gaining body fat. Normally, I'd always been able to control my weight by dieting on calories that I knew and macros that I knew, hitting my protein goals. And so I just figured I'll do that. After doing that, the scale didn't change. Nothing was really happening. Dropped my calories pretty low to what I knew was not really maintainable. And that really wasn't working. So that's probably where the frustration started to begin, along with some other symptoms that I had no idea were related to menopause.
And let me just say something, just because you mentioned calories, because this is like what I do in my lab. Like, I'm a fat loss researcher. And throughout our adult life, you would go on diet sometimes, and you would always lose weight predictably at like 1,400 calories. And then when we got to this phase, you were down to like 1,100 calories for weeks. Nothing, the body fat would not drop. As a scientist, I'm like, okay, this is clearly weight loss resistance. So I just wanted to highlight, just to give some context here, that you had never experienced this before. This was new.
Well, I mean, at this time, I guess with the increased body fat not really having results, I was getting less sleep just based on hot flashes and getting frustrated. So the gym might not have been as consistent. And along with that, I definitely started to become in a really bad place mentally. I mean, not diagnosed, but I definitely felt very depressed, not like myself. I pretty much kept that to myself and to you because I had no idea what was happening to me. Just basically did what I had to do to take care of our girls. But other than that, I would say I was pretty non-functional. So at that point, I was no longer dieting, and I still did go to the gym because it was a huge part of my daily schedule, but it was not nearly as consistent. And I imagine probably not super effective. But so that went on for about a year until it wasn't something you can really hide for that long. So you got involved and were pretty insistent that we kind of see what was going on, at least to address the sleep issues, which were kind of the only things that we knew were definitely hormone related.
Yeah, and just some of my memories, because we're going back 3 or 4 years now. I didn't even know how bad it was. You hid it from me. Sorry. My wife has seen me cry, I think maybe one time in 22 years. So, but it was bad. I couldn't help. I wanted to help. I couldn't help once I knew how bad it was.
I knew that hot flashes, interrupted sleep, night sweats, waking up a lot throughout the night was a menopause symptom. And that I was prepared for. I have always been, I'm just gonna tough it out, still work out, do what I need to do. So that it was not as fun as getting a full night's, a full sleep, and it wasn't enjoyable. But at the same time, it wasn't as life altering as when I started to have mental side effects, which at the time I had no idea was menopause related. I honestly didn't know what was happening to me. I was just, I did feel really depressed. I would say I was basically non-functional. I mean, I had told you, like, I don't talk to me, like I just want to take care of the girls and kind of make it seem like nothing was wrong for them. But other than that, I pretty much was useless. And so that was really depressing for me, because I just did not feel like productive, like I was contributing anything, and had no idea what was happening to me. Just really depressed. I mean, crying in the closet, panic attacks. So it was just odd, and I just didn't share it because I had no idea what was happening to me, because it was literally out of the blue, and had no idea it was hormonal. Luckily, he's super laid back and gave me space and didn't put any pressure on me. So at least I didn't have to worry about that aspect of him being angry. So I was lucky in that sense, because I wasn't in a good place. So I really just focused on my kids so that they didn't know anything was wrong.
Yes, I'm glad that you didn't feel any anger or frustration. There was a lot of, I don't know if it was, I think I was angry. Yeah, I remember calling you on the way home from work one night and just trying to, not venting, but like, I just remember that conversation. So it was just weird.
Yeah, it was weird.
Because again, we always had a great marriage, but when I reflect back, there was a year where it was just weird. And again, we didn't know. And let me just speak to all the men who have a partner who's going through this. Know that it's probably menopause related. Maybe your wife does like you. Maybe they don't want to share or admit what's going on. And in your case, you didn't even know yourself.
Yeah.
And that's when our friend Kim Kasem, she said, hey, I have a doctor that was very helpful to me. And that doctor prescribed HRT. And in my mind, as I reflect back, that really, that and being married to a great man, really, that changed things, just joking. Do you think that had a big change for you? Like in my mind, yes, there was a definitive, okay, you're at least being able to function normally again.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was really good that I was married to you, because I don't think I would have been able to advocate for myself. I've never been, like, don't love going to the doctor, just the traditional, like, I'm just gonna go to the gym, tough it out. I know, what I need to do. Delving into like the hormone stuff was insanely overwhelming. There's tons of different information, none of it aligned. So really, I wouldn't even know where to start, which is sad, because I feel like, I'm smart in other areas, but definitely in this area, I don't know how to read a study. So that was huge that I could go to you and then once we did start delving into hormone therapy, like feeling comfortable with taking it, just because there had been so much fear in the past. So we went to the doctor, and it was really helpful. I started taking progesterone, which made a huge difference in my mental state and sleep. So I didn't have any sleep issues anymore. I was back to sleeping well. Mentally felt a lot more like myself. Also thyroid medications, which helped with the weight loss. Although through that process, I realized just how much muscle mass I'd lost, and still struggling with some energy issues. And like, it was great. I feel great mentally. And I'm so happy to have had access to that, and that you kind of forced me to do it. So I feel like we're on our way, but it's definitely like an ongoing process, because it didn't give me back energy or things that you need to like build muscle and progress into like the aging process, where it's more of a struggle to keep that on.
Yeah, so you mentioned what you started with, and then in the last year, we added estrogen to your regimen, and you said the same word that I use. It's a process. This is what I'm learning. Your experience is not somebody else's experience. Your hormone replacement therapy program is going to be a different experience than somebody else's. So there is, and this really bothers me about the whole space. Everybody wants to have a one size fits all. And it is not a one size fits all. So we are navigating, making adjustments to what you're taking, and I think we're getting closer and closer to where we're going to have something that I think puts you like, hey, this is, now I feel that this is, working, or making you, feel like you did prior to this phase of life. It is sad because I keep hearing you say now, like, I lost so much muscle. And remember, you were somebody who embraced a fitness lifestyle. There was nobody better prepared for this than you, and yet you still lost a lot of muscle. I know that you were, I don't want to say angry, but just frustrated with some of the conversations with medical professionals, because it was almost like, just like so many other women, they just aren't listening. And I don't want to trash doctors. They work hard. They spend, they're dedicated to helping people. I think it's just more that they're not trained in this area. But I do remember us just like, why didn't anybody tell us about options that existed? Is that my reflection, or is that yours too?
Well, I mean, the only person I would have known to talk to at that time, like late 40s, would have been my gynecologist. And at that time, it was pretty much just the offer of birth control for like the hot flashes. And I had been on birth control like the first half of my life. I wasn't really interested in going back on that again for menopause related symptoms. That was the notch. Now it's funny, I went back last year and she has HRT under her name now too. So, and she saw that I was on HRT and thought she had prescribed it, but she hadn't. So I was like, no, but at least she's starting to get into it. I think it's still an area where you have to kind of know what you want, what you're looking for, because it's more, if you ask for it, they can give it to you, as opposed to them coming with like a plan based on your symptoms or your blood work.
And I also, and I've thanked you for this before, and I'm gonna go back to when we first got married. So I was in grad school, and you're like my little, test dummy. Like, I would work in a lab and I'm just a student. My wife would let me take blood from her. She would do all these crazy exercise tests. She wouldn't let me take a muscle biopsy. So she drew the line there.
No scars.
But again, she did every test imaginable. And now, once I decided I'm shifting my professional research career to investigating menopause fitness, weight loss resistance, we've done a lot of tests. We've talked to a lot of physicians. So once again, we kind of both thought, hey, I don't need you to be a subject anymore in my learning process. But yet here we are again in the last year or two, tons of saliva tests, just all kinds of testing. Because again, we're trying to figure out the best thing for you, but it also has the benefit for me where it's really accelerating my learning curve so that I can help other people with what we're learning. I want to make sure that less people have this issue I think it's just ignorance. It's an ignorance about what's happening. And I am optimistic that it is getting better. Again, you're one of your doctors now is apparently educated on HRT. So I think it's getting better. Well, there's a male researcher who's devoting his research lab to this. So we know that's getting better.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just, if I had known it was menopause related, I think it just would have been a different outcome. I probably would have sought like a hormonal treatment or something sooner. I was like, it's just gonna go away. It's gonna get better. So I think that's the biggest thing. I think even all the symptoms, even ones I don't have, people don't know about, like joint pain. So women who lift that randomly experience immense joint pain, that's going to impact their lifting, their lifestyle, how they feel about themselves. So it's just, I think that there's so many symptoms that people don't know are related to that like I may not have experienced. But I just think the weight gain, you're just not as hard on yourself if you're not going crazy.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that. So you had no joint pain, but you had energy levels that were horrible. I know in my conversations with women, they're like, well, my energy's not, like I have good energy, but I can't move because of this joint pain. And I had no idea joint pain was another symptom. So it's a testament to the fact one woman's experiences is not gonna be ubiquitous for all women. So that's one thing that I've learned throughout this, and I'm very thankful. I have my wife's story, and I'm very thankful for every other woman who shares their story with me on social media, even just commenting throughout this YouTube series, just telling me your story. That helps me. That helps me plan better studies. So what happened to make me change my research agenda to helping women going through menopause? And the main change was just becoming aware that this is a very overlooked phase of life, an area that general fitness profession has kind of ignored, is how I've internalized this. Again, I've had your experience and knew that wasn't good. And then as I started just asking questions, I just got so many similar stories from other women. And I'm realizing, well, I have research skills. I've been studying fat loss in younger women for the last 20 years. I need to investigate, well, why couldn't you lose weight? Why was it that what I would do in my other research studies in younger metabolically healthy women, why would reducing calories always work for them, but not for you? And why not all these other women that are claiming the same thing? And right now, we don't have any research in this area. So for me, it's very exciting to kind of be pioneering this and asking the questions. So if when I answer the question, why did I change? It's because we need research in this area. I know this wasn't easy for you. Thank you for doing this. I know it's gonna be helpful. And again, I know we always just focus, we don't want our girls to have your experience, or we want them to be aware of all their options. So thank you for doing this.
Sure, no problem.
What we're gonna do throughout this Menopause Fitness series is we're gonna look at what happens to a woman's hormones during this phase of life, and then talk about how that impacts her body composition, specifically what happens to body fat and what happens to muscle mass. Then our series is gonna lead into exercise and a fitness programming. Specifically, I'm going to explain why resistance training should be the foundation of your exercise program. But we also want to make sure that we're still training for aerobic fitness. And I'm going to also present that training for agility and speed are also important. After that, we're going to go into looking at nutrition. And in particular, I'm going to highlight really compelling research about the power of protein and why protein intake needs to be optimized, especially during the menopause years. Along the way, we're also going to discuss the importance of sleep, weight loss resistance, and hormone replacement therapy, and why a lot of women have an unjustified fear about hormone replacement therapy, and the unfortunate role that the Women's Health Initiative study had on kind of stoking this fear. Now, as we heard from my wife, and I want to make this point very clear, not every woman's experience will be reflective of other women's experiences. Every menopause transition is unique. Throughout my thousands of communications and asking women questions, I've come to the place where, and this is just my opinion, but I have a categorization that I like to use, and I think it's really important to share with you. So I have 3 different categories of a woman's experience as she goes through menopause. We have cruisers, grinders, and train wreck. So if you're a cruiser, you're going through menopause without really much problems. You're not experiencing a lot of energy. Your energy levels aren't in the tank. You're not gaining a lot of weight. You're still able to exercise and recover well from that exercise. And in fact, you look at other women, you're like, I don't know what they're complaining about. Like this isn't that bad. Then we have the grinders. The grinders have some unfortunate side effects through menopause. As an example, they might have some joint pain, but their energy levels are fine. or maybe they don't recover well from their workouts. They gain a little bit of weight, but they can lose it just by buckling down and dieting a little bit harder than what they used to. So the grinders have a little more difficulty, but it's nothing they can't handle. And then we have the train wrecks. The train wrecks are those women where their life is literally just turned upside down. No energy, no desire to work out, pain, anxiety, even depression. And I want to make a point here about train wrecks. And again, I would categorize my wife as a train wreck. But let me be clear. If you're not in a good place, this may be a time where you need to get well, where we focus on dialing back the amount of exercise you're doing. So what I'm trying to do is I'm providing context, and I'm going to be providing context throughout this entire series. I know how frustrating it can be when you're not in a good place and you have scientific experts or other women saying, you need to do this, you need to work out harder. And what I'm telling you is, in my opinion, if you're not in a great place, then everything we're going to talk about with exercise is aspirational. We want to get you to where you can do the things that we want you to be doing with training and your fitness program. Another key feature of this series is I'm bringing the receipts. You'll notice throughout the entire series, when I'm talking about research, I'm going to cite the study that has informed my opinion. Now, there may be times where I don't have research and I'll say, hey, this is just my opinion. But I don't want you to take my word for what I'm saying and what I'm presenting. I'm going to present to you the research so that you can read those studies yourself, or at a minimum, just know these are the studies that I've read that have informed my opinion that I'm sharing with you. And as I'm presenting this research, you're going to notice I draw heavily on a group of research studies called the SWAN studies. Now, SWAN stands for the Study of Women's Health Across the Nation. And what the SWAN studies are is a multi-site, longitudinal study in the United States that was used to examine the health of women during their middle age years. Now, by virtue of studying women during midlife, guess what we get a lot of research about? Menopause and menopause transition. So I'm going to be talking about these SWAN studies and how they've really informed my opinion on a lot of different areas. Also, I'm going to be using terminology that most of us are familiar with. Most of us, or traditionally, we've used the term that when you're going through menopause, we use the term, or you've heard of the term, perimenopause. So you're not quite premenopausal and you're not postmenopausal. You're in the process of becoming postmenopausal. I'm going to typically use the term menopause transition, but it's very similar in meaning to perimenopause. The reason I'm using the word menopause transition is because I'm relying on the research relative to what happens to body fat and muscle mass, and that was the terminology that the researchers used in those studies. Lastly, where I'm going to be referring to a foundational principle throughout the entire series. The foundational principle is this: muscle equals health, excess body fat equals sickness. So throughout my entire research career, I've focused on how to lose body fat and how to optimize muscle mass. And what I want to do going forward is helping women who are experiencing weight loss resistance or helping them be prepared for when menopause comes. And I'm going to do this by helping women know the exact types of programming that will maximize muscle building, and then hopefully they can maintain that during their menopause transition, which, as we're going to see in the next episode, women start to lose muscle mass during this time. I'm going to refer a lot to research. I'm going to bring the receipts, and we're going to appreciate a focus on muscle for health and eliminating excess body fat, which tends to work against our health efforts. I'm excited about this entire series. I just laid out everything that we're going to cover, and please join me. Let's learn this together. As we're going to go into the next episode, what we're going to look at is the hormonal changes that occur during this menopause transition. So what's going on physiologically? Now, we talked about my wife's experience. If her experience resonated with you, please comment about what did resonate with you. Or if you had a different experience, I still want to hear that. That's going to be valuable to me. So I'm looking at this as me presenting to you research. I'm asking you to be accountable in that I want you to communicate with me so that you can increase my learning curve based on your experiences. And real quick, we don't have almost no research on women who've embraced a fitness lifestyle going through menopause. There's almost no research in that specific population. Once again, I want to thank Hone Health for making this educational series possible. I'll see you in the next episode.